Welcome to a CEP Mindset Talk with myself, Dr. Cassidy Preston, and Coach Nicholas. Your first time, me and you doing one together. Thanks for joining, Nick.
My pleasure, man. Happy to be here. Unfortunately, we're not talking about the most exciting news today with the lockdowns and stuff, but I think it's a very important discussion to be had. And I'm all jazzed up, ready to go.
Yeah, well, we're going to dive in. So the topic is obstacles make us stronger. And I'm just going to share my whiteboard here. We've got three big lessons for this. This theme, the topic, obstacles make us stronger. That's a great mantra right now because this is tough. Like, it's a hard situation. Athletes are in, like, here we are in, like, I don't know, it's our fourth or our fifth lockdown in Ontario. And this is, and even if you're not in Ontario, people are dealing with tough stuff all the time. There's always obstacles. So this applies to all the time, but it really applies right now why we want to make an extra video and jump into this sooner than later. There's going to be three lessons we're going to dive into. That is, be the bonfire, okay? And which is all about being able to not get like down and out, like how to rise above the challenges, the tough times. Then number two, which is going to help with that, is adapt to the situation. We as humans, one of the most important things we can be is adaptable. That's a key part of resilience. So we're going to talk about how to reframe, how to, invest your time and energy, reprioritize your focus. That's going to be number two lesson. And the third big one, we're going to dive into some really important actions you can be taking, things to do to make the most out of these few weeks and to do with your lockdowns, or even if, athletes that are in other situations, if you get COVID and all these things, when you're in a tough spot, what are things you can do to work on your mindset, rise above, and make sure obstacles are making us stronger? Nicholas, do you want to add anything before we dive in here?
Yeah. So as athletes, we're not unused to facing obstacles. We're just used to certain obstacles, like in the game or in the practice, in training obstacles, difficulty with coach, teammates, opponents. Today, we're just going to be talking about what are the new obstacles that we're going to be facing if you're in lockdown or if you're got COVID and you're in the States and you're able to play, but you can't. So we're all used to overcoming obstacles. Today, we're just going to be getting used to these different obstacles that we're not necessarily used to, but that we can still overcome and become our best version of ourselves.
Yeah. So lesson one, be the bonfire. I love this. This comes from Brian Johnson, runs his Optimized group. And we also, credit to him for helping us with the stronger obstacles make us stronger too. That was inspired by one of his sayings. So when I'm thinking about be the bonfire, there's two ways that when an obstacle, a wind, let's call it a wind here, like a gust of wind happens. And if you're the candle, okay, what happens? If you're a candle, you got a little fire and a gust of wind happens, it's going to deflate you. You're going to feel deflated. You're going to get down and out. As you'll notice, those watching the videos, I can't spell very well. You'll get used to that if you didn't know already. Okay. But if you're the candle, you get deflated. It's out, you're down, you're getting negative. It's getting the best of you. Whereas a bonfire, what happens to a bonfire when a gust of wind comes in? It doubles down. It gets bigger. It gets stronger. That use it as fuel. And so right now, this obstacle, the wind, the lockdowns, how are we framing it? How are we perceiving ourselves as a bonfire? And we're that committed to our sport, to our life, to things that matter. And we're going to get even more committed. We're going to grow from this. We're going to be inspired. Like, I know kids that are out on the outdoor rink, they're kids that are, training more, doing more of the mental training, etc. And so I think this is just a really nice, cool frame. Are you the candle or are you going to be a bonfire? And think of it this way too, like as humans, adapting and growing and dealing with tough stuff is so important. This is life. Like, you can't avoid challenges throughout life, which we're going to get into when I'm talking about adapt. But like, what feels better? It does obviously not going to feel good to be the candle right now. And you might want to, and it's kind of the easy choice, but you don't need to choose it. And just framing it and being self-aware that you have the choice to be the bonfire, to grow. It might be a bit harder, but it's definitely going to be more meaningful, right? So this is such an important first lesson frame. How are we going to respond? Because we can't necessarily control what's going on and when obstacles show up and gust of wind comes, but you can control, are you going to be a candle or a bonfire? Nicholas, you want to add anything?
Yeah, I have a slightly different interpretation of this that I think expands on it. Excuse me. And let's see if I could do some drawing here. So if we were to do a candle real loosely here versus a bonfire, we're going to throw down some sticks and understanding that there's this massive flame kind of popping out. when you're a candle, it's very easy to spark it, right? You get your lighter, you start your candle. And if you do nothing and there is no wind, the candle will keep burning. It's not going to be particularly bright, but it'll keep going until all that wax is gone. But the bonfire requires attention. You got to feed the fire. You got to add in more logs because those logs will start burning, turning into ash, excuse me, and that will start dwindling your fire. So a bonfire requires a lot more effort. It requires you to pay attention to yourself. It requires you to feed that fire. A candle is more of a one-off. You light it and then you just let it burn until that wind comes along. So I want you to start thinking about how big is my fire? Am I a small little candle or am I a big bonfire? And just recognizing that a bonfire requires effort.
Yeah, no, I love it. So be the bonfire, great way to help us. Obstacles make us stronger, and be a bonfire. And that if you're a bonfire, obstacles are making you stronger. All right, let's jump into number 2, adapt to the situation. This is so important because, especially if you think of their mindset and the mental game in general, generally when we're doing that, we're under indexing on it anyways. Well, now this is one thing you can do. You can refocus your priorities. Like, what is the opportunity that lies here? Well, maybe you never had the time or the energy to work on your mindset and your mental game. And it's such a big part, especially as you rise the ranks, you get to higher levels. Well, now you have to, in a way, because it's going to be really hard. So you can put your energy and adapt and focus more on the mental game, right? Focus more on your mindset and how we're dealing the input and the actions we're going to talk about in the third. But the mental game becomes so important. So that's one of these big opportunities. And one of the other big things that I want to frame here is this is not about, when we're talking about mental game, we are not talking about just being all positive. Okay. When we're talking about adapting, we're talking about growing, we're talking about being the bonfire. This is definitely not about being negative. Okay. Because a lot of people have like negative self-talk. This sucks. We BCE, we blame, complain, and make excuses. Like, that's not helping anybody. But trying to go, so we clearly don't want to be this, right? Nope. But over here on the other side is like, well, be positive. Everything's great. The lockdown, like what? Like, it's not about that. It's not going to work. And a lot of people will try. Well, just got to be positive about it. Just make the most out of it and be positive. Okay. Yes, make the most out of it, but just a simple be positive, which is used a ton, doesn't work. And it's associated often with like depressive states. It does not work. You can't do it. You're trying to ignore this. So when we talk about be a bonfire, I'm going to write it here. Okay. Be a bonfire, adapt, grow, it's a different direction. And so this is what we're preaching. And when you're investing in your mental game, that's being a bonfire. That's adapting to the situation so you can grow. You can see things for what they are, see the kind of little silver lining here, the opportunity to do other things, reframe. And this is also one of the other ways to frame it. I'm going to let Nicholas dive into it about, rivers and banks, and like having structure becomes important, which we're going to get into the third part. But it's like, you can't avoid challenges. And so like in life, you're never just going to get all sunshine and rainbows. That's called a fantasy. And a good example to also state, like, you really don't like your situation. Like, some people are actually moving, but a lot of us, that's not a choice. And they're moving out of Ontario and stuff. So if you can't change the situation itself, well, at least change your mindset to adapt to it and to make the most out of it, embrace it, so that it's not leaving you in, beating yourself up zone, negative, blame, complain, excuses, being the candle. And so this word adapt is, again, so key to resilience. And I wanted to really touch on that. Nicholas, you want to dive a little deeper on this with me?
Absolutely. Can you give me a fresh white page here? So I want to talk a little bit about boundaries and creating your own boundaries and structure in life. So the problem with lockdowns is that we lose all of our structure. All that structure is gone. If you're a student athlete, you have a lot of school going on, you have your sport, you have family life, which has come to a halt because you can't really get together with family and stuff too much. You have friends and stuff that you want to do away from your sport and live a full life, which is limited because things are locked down and you can't go enjoy yourself. So now you're freeing up your time, right? You probably had minimal time. A lot of elite athletes do have minimal free time because you're focused on your school, your sport, your family, your friends, so on. So I like to think of this as a riverbank problem. So if this was a beautiful mountain here, and we got a flowing stream coming down the mountain, you being that water. So first you were fire, now you're water. We're going to be all the elements today, but we are water coming down the mountain. These boundaries, the riverbanks, they are extremely important because they're the things that give you direction. They're the things that give you purpose and meaning. When you remove the boundaries, the structure from your life, the river stops flowing and the water doesn't go forward, it goes sideways. And it becomes a stagnant pool of muddy, dirty, algae-filled garbage that doesn't have purpose, that doesn't have direction, and doesn't have that vitality. So what I encourage all elite athletes to start doing is start thinking about, how can I start forming my riverbanks, right? What am I going to do every day that gives me structure with my free time? And like Cassidy was mentioning, one big thing that you can do is reprioritize. Might spelled it wrong, pulled a Cassidy, but we want to reprioritize, and we want to be able to understand, okay, on my day-to-day, I would go to school 6 to 8 hours. I would go to my sport 3 to 4 hours. So you had that automatic priority. I want you to, or I encourage you to reprioritize that and start saying, with all this extra free time, what am I going to do? And a big thing is your mental game, right? You have free time. Pick up a book about sports, about psychology, read some news articles about it. We get tons of information about COVID and the lockdowns and all the difficulty. Get some new information there. Prioritize that. Prioritize maybe your food and your water intake. These are easy habits, not easy, but relatively easy to build if you have free time. So focusing on your food, your water, your mental game, all the things that you can do so that when your sport comes back and when your structure is added again, and you do have that limited time, well, now these habits are already formed and they're much easier to incorporate to your busy schedule that most elite athletes have to deal with.
Love it. I'm just going to flip here. One last quote to this adapting to the situation. This is Viktor Frankl. It's a bit extreme because it's coming from the Holocaust, but a really good quote that ties into mindset. And when you always have a choice, and that last big choice is around your attitude, your perception, your ability to adapt to your surroundings. And so everything can be taken from a man, but one thing, the last of the human freedoms, to choose one's attitude in any given set of circumstances, to choose one's own way. And so that's what we're encouraging here when you're thinking about your mindset, how you're dealing with and adapting to the current situation. So back to the drawing board here. I'm going to flip to the last one. Nicholas really teed that up, take action. So one of the ways to think about and frame taking action is, what are the things you can do? Okay, because there's a lot you can't do, and you really want to be focusing on what you can. I've got 3 big ones to start, and there's some other ways that I want to tie this in, and we'll elaborate on them. The first big one, doing imagery. And in our podcast, we've got imagery scripts, at least for forwards, D, and goalies in hockey. But imagery is something that you have full control over. You can be doing 10 quality imagery, 10 minutes a day, every day. It's something you should be doing in season anyways. Most athletes do it 1 or 2 times a week, if at all. It's supposed to be a 4, 5, 6 times a week activity. It's repetition that matters. So imagery, it's in setting your intention for how you want to show up. And the athletes that spend the next couple of weeks, 3 weeks, the lockdowns, using their mind and imagery and planning how they're going to feel and act and show up, not just the results, but more so the process, major benefits. So check out those. B, I won't go too off on here, but it's a big one. It's a really interesting one, and I'll probably spell it wrong. Meditation. Okay. Meditation. You ever heard of it? It's massive. It's up there with exercise, sleep, nutrition. And what's interesting, we often don't press this too often, but one of the foundational pieces to mindset, to your self improvement and mastery, is self-awareness. Okay. Or also known as mindfulness. And so everything we do with athletes, and we're getting you to encourage to do, whether it's a reset routine, reflections, imagery, an alter ego, listening to a podcast, reading a book, they're all helping with this. But one of the most foundational things to do it is actually meditate. Okay. And it's really well proven to support that. And so now you got the time. Pro athletes I work with, they'll often do 20 minutes a day. You don't have to do that. Usually it would be hard for you to do when you're in school and busy, but now you got time. Add it in, try it out. Nicholas has got a couple of guided meditations on our podcast. There's all kinds of great free apps and ways to learn. It's an interesting thing to get people to do, but it works. And what else are you going to be doing with your time? Are you making the most of it? Are you adapting to your situation? Are you being a bonfire and doubling down? Are you being a candle and dwindling? And so we'll get more into that if we want. Nicholas, I know can probably speak to that even better than I can. And the third big thing here that I want to get you to reflect on, and I'm going to go on a couple other things, is like ask yourself a daily question. So what kind of reflections can you be doing and questions you could be doing? It's going to be different than when you were in sport. And the athletes we're working with, one of the simple ones is like, what percentage are you showing up as the bonfire, making the most out of it, the adapting to the situation, focusing on what you get to do, versus are you showing up as a candle and getting deflated and blaming, complaining, excuses, and getting negative? And we want it to be 95 plus over here, majority, not perfection, but that's a huge question. You could be doing, what am I doing well today? Focus on your little wins. And the whole point of all of these, and a nice way to look at this, is if you think of your mind, okay, as a radio kind of station, as an input output station, what you input is going to determine your output. And so your experience. And so we think of, well, what are the outputs we want? Well, we want to be the bonfire. We want to have the motivation. We want to have confidence when we're playing our sport. We want to feel motivated. We want to be in the zone when we're playing our sport. Those are like big ones. We want to be resilient, right? That's the outcome. Those are the outcomes of our mind, right? The output. And versus, what we don't want to be is like doubting, hesitating, overthinking, etc. Okay. Or in the pandemic right now, you're in a lockdown, you're feeling down, you're not motivated, etc. But what really matters is, what are you inputting? And a big issue, and I want you to think about protecting your mind. We focus a lot on protecting your body. Think of your body. What do you input into your body? You've got to input good fuel. You got to eat well. Well, you don't eat well, guess what happens? You're not going to perform as well. Okay, your physical performance. So your mind, what are you inputting? A lot of us are on social media nonstop. You're on TikTok for 5 hours a day. Guess what kind of output you're probably going to get? Be mindful. Doesn't mean don't do these things, but be mindful. You're hanging around negative people. You're watching the news too much, constant negative news, CNN. People get anxious. So a lot of people don't put quality stuff into their mind. But when you're doing the things we're talking about, imagery, meditation, listening to a podcast that's like this one, or video, you're reading a book, go pick up a sports psych book. We've got lots. Shoot us a message. We'll send you some recommendations. Okay. You're joining a group call, you're doing a one-on-one, you're talking to people, you're around positive people, okay, that are, not just positive all the time, but they have that positive attitude. Look, make the most out of it. This is the input that's going to help you get the right output. And watch this. If you can do it now, for the people that are in a major, adversity, obstacles right now in the lockdowns, you do it now, you're going to be doing it when it ends, and you become that much mentally stronger. The obstacles make us stronger. And we know this. And now I know it for certain, because we've been coaching people through a pandemic for almost 2 years now. And the athletes that have been doing this stuff, doing the right input, focusing on being the bonfire, focusing on being, adjusting and making the most out of the situations. Those are the ones coming out and having great seasons. And some of them are still playing. Some of them are in the States. Some of them are in Canada. Some of them they're still playing around. And some of them are shut down again. Well, they're going to double down. They're going to be a bonfire and grow. So there's a lot there, Nicholas. We don't want to go too long here, but what do you want to add in here in terms of this third big area about taking action?
Yeah, for sure. I want to talk a little bit about that social media, and then a little bit about competition. So when it comes to social media, everyone, it's hard to just stop going on social media, obviously, right? You're used to it. You do it, 2, 4, 6 hours a day. What I encourage you to do right off the bat is go into your social media and fix it. But what I mean by fix it, everyone, means who are you following and why are you following them? Something I did yesterday was I spent an hour removing people from my social media and adding new people and going onto their list and seeing who they follow, because of course, social media is important for life nowadays. It's integrated to how we live. It's how we communicate with the world. So it's not inherently a bad thing. It's all about how you use it and how much you use it, when you use it, so on and so forth. So I encourage you, go in, unfollow the people that is just allows you to scroll and allows you to just kind of numb your mind, and start following people that you find interesting. So if you're an athlete, follow elite athletes that have great training videos that you can learn from. Follow some sports psych guys if you want, some physio trainers, whatever you have interest in. And it's important to remember that just because you're an elite athlete, you don't only have to view athletic things. If you're interested in forensic psychology, if you're interested in whatever, being a lawyer, get some good social media accounts that apply to that and learn, right? If you're going to spend an hour on the phone, spend a nice, good quality hour. So that's huge. Now, the other thing I want to bring up, something that Cassidy didn't mention but he primed me, was this idea of competition. Elite athletes love competition. Okay, it's what we love to do. It's why you show up. If you remove competition from your sport, I bet you wouldn't go, right? You're not a house league player. You're an elite level / pro player or semi-pro, wherever you're at. So make sure that you're peppering in competition. So there's two ways you can do that. One, obviously with yourself, set some goals, try to achieve it, test where you're at, see if you could push yourself. But more importantly, make it social. If you're on a team, if you play a team sport, if you're a hockey player, you got anywhere between 15 to 25 people on your roster, depending on your level. Use them. Create competition. Create something that you could wake up every day and say, like, I'm better than you, or you're better than me. Fuel that fire that you're used to, because it's very easy for people who are used to competition, once it's removed, to kind of fade away and feel a little bit lost, which is completely normal. So I encourage you to get a friend. If you don't have a friend, find one the best you can, and start challenging each other in ways that are going to make you both better people, better athletes.
Love it. Last thing I'll say, tying this in again with the social media, we've got a video, so we can add some links to that. But there's a video I made, how to get unaddicted or stop being so addicted to your phone. It's not a problem, but you got to manage it. It's like eating donuts. You have a donut here and there, but you eat donuts all day, every day. It's problematic. And it also affects the other things you do, like sleep, fuel. Okay. So there's a lot of issues that can come up out of that. So make sure, protect your mind. Okay. It's an important resource. To tie this all together, theme, topic, obstacles make us stronger. And there's always going to be obstacles in your life. Yeah. New obstacle right now, some tough obstacles. I feel it. It's tough. Okay. But this mantra becomes so important. Understand these 3 lessons. Be the bonfire. Don't be the candle. Don't let this dwindle you of anything. Commit, make it stronger. Dive into your love of the game, your sports, the things that matter, commit to them. Adapt. You're going to need to adapt. That's a life skill. That's so important. People that know how to adapt and not, and become the bonfire in tough times, make the most out of it. That matters. And then you have to take action. This is not just rhetoric to talk. There's things to do, plans to make, organize your thoughts that way, and give yourself some structure. That riverbank thing, that matters, because you're in a bit of a chaos unknown territory in a lot of ways, and it's frustrating. You have to have some plans, some commitments, and that's the video for today, the session, the talk. And Nicholas, obviously, if you have any last thoughts, but encouraging everybody, like, share, follow us on YouTube, podcast, whatever it is, Instagram, and we appreciate everyone. Hope everyone's making the most out of these tough times. Nicholas, any final thoughts?
For me, it's just psychology is all about action. I know it's in the mind, but take action, do something with this, do at least one thing, help that momentum start going.
Yeah. Talk's one thing, but we talk so that there's action. We're not just talkers and philosophers in and of itself. We want to be action takers, practitioners, make a change. That's what we hold ourselves accountable to, the athletes we work with. So hold yourself to that standard as well. Reach out if you got any questions. Take care, everyone.